Okay, today we're going to talk a little bit about lipids. Let me minimize this a little bit. Okay, we've just finished kind of to bring kind of this back to our mind. We've talked about some of the different kinds of carbohydrates. That was our first group of organic compounds. Now we're going to move into our second group of organic compounds called lipids. Now at this point you've done a little pre-reading. You've kind of gotten some of the basics perhaps out of the book. We're going to maybe delve into it a little bit more today. One of the main differences between lipids and carbohydrates that you should jot down is that lipids are non-polar. That means when we look at a lipid, everything is being pulled in equal directions. Nothing has a charge. If you think back to water, water was polar, where we had the positive sides of hydrogen and the negative side of oxygen. And so when we'd have other water molecules that were around them, other water molecules would want to orient a certain way where the positive and negatives would attract to each other. Polar molecules like to connect. All right, we call those hydrogen bonds. Now, what we're looking at, though, is nonpolar. What this basically means is lipids hate water. We use this term, hydrophobic. What does it mean if somebody has a phobia? Arachnophobia, hydrophobia. Phobia is fear. So technically, if we were to look at this word specifically, it means water fearing. So if I have a lipid and water, these are going to want to be as far away from water as possible. The flask on my desk in front of the room has that blue food coloring water, and it has vegetable oil on top. Oil and fats are types of lipids, and you will never be able to get those two to like each other. Lipids and water hate each other. Lipids are afraid of water. So, nonpolar, hydrophobic, they mean the same thing, but make sure you get that as one of the characteristics of lipids. Some examples of lipids. You guys had this in the book. We need to jot them down. Fats, we're going to look at that first because that's related to America's obesity problem, which we'll talk about a little bit. Oils, which are almost the same thing as fats. Waxes, like beeswax, earwax, you could throw in there. Candle wax, which is called paraffin, but there's a variety of waxes. Steroids, another word for steroids are hormones. So yes, every teenager in the world is on steroids. All right, now that doesn't mean you go home and say, hey mom, my biology teacher said we're on steroids. Okay, well, that's just because people don't know what the word means. The word steroid actually means hormone. So if someone's taking anabolic steroids, they're taking synthetic hormones to basically give them some sort of edge over the competition. Okay, so all of us are technically on steroids. We'll talk about hormones a little bit later in this discussion. And then a fourth kind, fifth kind are called phospholipids, which we're going to talk a lot more about. But if you look at the name, ends with lipids, has phosphorus as part of it. So that's an interesting one. It's a little bit different than the others. Okay, so they're nonpolar, afraid of water. We've got some different kinds Let's look at how their formula is different. All right, well, let's compare that to what we have for carbohydrates. Carbohydrates, like glucose, C6H12O6. We had this double, 2-to-1 ratio. Hydrogen was always twice the number of oxygens. Do we have that here? I would say no. It's not even close. I've got H32O2. Here's your clue. Lipids have a low O. Low O. All right, a very low oxygen number. Yes, I know the hydrogen's double the carbon. We don't want to pay any attention to that because that's not always true. But if I look at the oxygen number, it's always going to be very, very low compared to the hydrogen. So pay attention to that. Lipids start with an L. Low starts with an L. Low sounds like O. Okay, so whatever way you can remember it, but lipid low oxygen. Okay. Go a little farther. What they're used for. Quite a bit of different things. Most people think fat is bad. Well, too much fat is bad. All right, but fat by itself is something that you must have to be able to survive. Now, what are some things lipids can be used for? One thing is to make your cell membrane. We're going to talk about cells in the next chapter, and one of the things we're going to find out is your cell membrane is part lipid, part protein, part carbohydrate. There's all these sorts of things that are combined into it, but one of the things is your lipids. So we have to have a certain amount to make up our cells. Second thing, hormones. We've got to have testosterone, estrogen, progesterone, cortisone. There's all these different hormones. Even cholesterol is thrown in there. It's a steroid. All your hormones are used to regulate various parts of your body. We call that homeostasis. Going back to the very first of the year. Homeostasis, keeping things in balance, keeping things regulated. All these hormones do is keep things in a proper arrangement. Third thing, lipids provide insulation. If you've ever heard the term skin and bones, people that are really, really skinny have a hard time staying warm or staying cool. They have a hard time regulating their body temperature because they don't have enough fat. On the other side, people who are obese, okay, on the verge of having way, way, way too much weight, almost to the point where it's life-threatening, have a hard time regulating their body temperature. They tend to stay too hot, especially if they exercise. They have too much insulation. In the wild, we could look at Arctic animals. Whales and seals, okay, even penguins have a layer of fat that they use for trapping in body heat. It's like putting on a big down coat that traps in heat. But if we had to pick one thing, I'd put a star beside it. The one thing that lipids are used for in your body is for storing energy. If you have more energy than what you need, your body stores it, and it stores it as fat. The Problem is, your body isn't going to want to break apart fat. So once it gets stored, it's less likely to be used. And that's why you want to kind of regulate how much energy you're taking up compared to how much energy you're using.